It is Monday, December 23rd, 2024. This is another edition of Football Today, presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL. Want to welcome in Bobby Skinner, Justin Penik. I am Chris Rose, producer Connor along for the ride as well. Gentlemen, we are knee-deep here in Week 16 of the NFL, and we are, of course, going to get it going with our La Vida Más Fina Game of the Week. It is presented to you by Corona. And it was a great one. NFC East, Philadelphia was trying to extend its winning streak to 11 games and also clinch the NFC East. Instead, we got the Jayden Daniels show, his fifth and final touchdown pass of the day to Jamison Crowder with less than 10 seconds left, gives Washington a 36-33 win over the Philadelphia Eagles. Bobby Skinner, I know that you were not the biggest Jayden Daniels fan coming into the season, but what has he shown you throughout his rookie year that made you go, damn, he is good?
I feel like I'm being mischaracterized. I wanted him on the New York Giants. I just thought his first two games weren't what people were making them out to be. But he has. I mean, he's just killed the middle of the field ever since. Cliff Kingsbury. Maybe there's not a Cliff. Maybe it's a Kyler Cliff that we've seen. Really well designed play to get that touchdown at the end of the game. But there's just a coolness about Jayden Daniels where it's just nothing flusters him. A 4th and 11 and end of the third quarter, that scramble was Lamar-esque. Like, if you told me he got the first down on that, I was like, oh, okay. But again, add like 15, 20 more yards on top of it, on top of the first down. He doesn't scramble early when he needs to. He throws from the pocket. He takes the checks downs when they're there. He takes the middle of the field when it's there. When he does extend, it's either a great scramble or he's finding guys for big plays and touchdowns on the sideline. There's just kind of a coolness that we're seeing with him, and those legs are the ultimate, like, hey, if it's not there, I can make something out of this. Which I don't think there's any quarterback who can rush better than him right now, besides Lamar Jackson.
And Rose, who was he throwing the ball to yesterday? I understand Terry McLaurin's there, but didn't Jamison Crowder have like 2 touchdown receptions? I mean, so again, to Bobby's point of coolness, you're calm, and it was quite jarring, by the way. It was a jarring viewing experience for me because it was Giants-Falcons game ends with nothing on the line, no juice, no whatever. There's been no juice to Giants games over the last however many months. And then, boom, you're thrown into a game that, like, everything's on the line and it's back and forth, and Jayden Daniels is making all these amazing throws. So it was quite the experience for me as a viewer at home to just be like, wow, this is just really good quarterback play. This is really good football. And seeing who he was throwing the ball to at the end of the game, it's like this is what Jayden Daniels is working with. And that run game wasn't even very good yesterday for them. So credit to Jayden Daniels for doing what he's doing, and that was an awesome game.
And we were one drop Devontae Smith play away from talking about how he blew the game, but in reality, he still threw 4 touchdowns, had all those rushing yards before that final interception and final touchdown.
Yeah, well, I mean, listen, he got some help in the dropsies department. We're talking about Jayden Daniels. He was part of the team that turned it over 5 times. He wasn't solely responsible, right? They put it on the rug 3 times, and then he got picked off a couple of times as well. But I think that shows an awful lot. We're young, sometimes young guys get a little gun shy if they turn it over, if they look at it and they were like, my God, you always have to protect the football. It's the number one thing that coaches will get on young guys about. That team turned it over 5 times, and undaunted, he went against a Philadelphia defense that has been the best in the league during this winning streak that they were on. They were seconds away from clinching the NFC East crown on the Commanders' home turf. I mean, there's just a lot to like about him. There's a lot to like about this entire quarterbacks class. I mean, I know that Caleb Williams and the Bears have not won a game in their last 9 tries, but still, we all believe he's a big talent. Jayden Daniels doing incredible things. We'll see him in the playoffs. Drake May is the lone, light in a very dim season for the New England Patriots. Michael Penix Jr., I thought, did fine, and he's going to have his chance to get his team to the playoffs. Bo Nix is most likely going to end up in the playoffs. So this quarterback class is nothing like the 2021 version. I think there's a lot to enjoy with this class moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And like you said, like 2 guys that Caleb we're not going to see in the playoffs. Drake May, hope New England can figure it out to put some surrounding pieces around him. But like when you watch him, you like it. Now there is kind of like at UNC, there's one or two plays a game where you're like, what the hell is that? That can take you from rookie we like to third year player who just doesn't have it. But yeah, it's been fun to watch. But Jayden's been the clear head of the class.
All right, let's ask one more question before we move on. The Eagles have, I believe, now less than a 5% chance of getting the number one overall seed in the NFC. That's because of the whole tiebreaker scenario with Detroit and Minnesota, and those two teams both at identical 13-2 records, and then they play each other in Week 18. So it's going to be tough sledding for Philadelphia. But out of those three teams, Philly, Minnesota, Detroit, Penik, which one needs the number one seed, the bye, and home field advantage throughout the NFC playoffs the most?
I think it's Philly. Because I think Philly can be the most dangerous out of the three, but for whatever reason, or the other two, but for whatever reason, I think they could have a game. Now, I understand Jalen Hurts getting hurt complicates this whole Washington game, but I still feel like they could have a game where they just lose it, where Jalen Hurts just doesn't have it. Maybe Saquon Barkley in the second half isn't breaking off these big explosive plays, or even if the game script, if they're down by 7, if they're down by 10, maybe you're not giving Barkley all those second half attempts like he usually gets. So I think Minnesota and Detroit, like Detroit could take it personal if they're on the road. It's like, yeah, Detroit versus everybody. They already have shirts of it. But I think Philly needs that bye because I think they need to play less games in order for them to have the better chance to move on.
I actually strongly think Detroit. I think what Philly does travels well with the run game, throwing one-on-ones to A.J. Brown and that defense of Vic Fangio. We talk about units right now, and like Minnesota, good offense, good defense. Philly, good offense, good defense. Like that Lions defense could just be bad when it's playing good teams. And we trust the Lions offense better than any of these other units, right? Individually. I trust them to outscore. Outscoring three different teams in the playoffs on the road is, to me, it's a lot more difficult than 2 games at home. And one of those could be if you get a surprise wild card win, a team that you're clearly superior to. If you get one, or if the Falcons, win their game. Like we're clearly taking the Lions over them. I think it matters a lot for the Detroit Lions because of how banged up they are on defense, and you're going to need to outscore guys. You want to be at home in the dome. So I think Detroit needs it badly with their injuries.
The only thing is that the Lions are the only undefeated team on the road this year, and they're averaging close to 30 points a game. Now, I agree with you, Bobby, in terms of the defensive personnel. That narrative has really shifted, particularly over the last month. So, yeah, if they fall out and they end up being a 14-win 5 seed, could you imagine that, where they have to go on the road perhaps for all 3 games just to get to their first ever Super Bowl? I mean, that could really, really happen. You do have Minnesota that has to play Green Bay, and then Detroit is on the road next Monday night at San Francisco. And even though they should lap the field out there, you just never know. Maybe San Francisco puts one game together here down the stretch and ends up beating them. And then Week 18, you've got Detroit playing host to Minnesota. Man, that is going to be some great, great theater. So now,
that's got to be the Sunday Night Football game, right? I mean, that's just a guarantee.
Not necessarily. Usually what they try and do is they'll try and get a do or die, meaning somebody's eliminated.
That's true.
Yeah. Didn't we get Washington? Did we get Washington Giants a few years ago? Was that a Sunday nighter?
No, you're thinking of Washington Eagles 2020. Yes,
Washington Eagles.
The 6-10 Giants were waiting on them, and the Eagles put in Nate Sudfeld, and again, just flashing. It's all flashing, but in front of me right now.
Okay. All right. So we just said
at least we got a better draft pick and got Kadarius Toney and Evan Neal, so that was sick. Yeah.
By the way, I would agree with you, Bobby. I do think that even though Detroit is a perfect 7-0 on the road, I think that they need it the most because of their injury situation. With that being said, real quickly, let's pick the team we think is going to be the number 1 seed. Bobby?
Detroit. I think they beat Minnesota last week of the season.
Penik?
I think Minnesota is going to beat the Lions. And I think I had a thought, isn't it amazing that this, you call it a rebuilding season, but technically it's not even rebuilding. This was supposed to be a retooling season, and Minnesota has a legit shot at the number 1 seed. It's crazy.
I think Detroit. I think they'll figure it out the last 2 weeks, and Dan Campbell will motivate that team to get the bye week. We shall see. We shall see. All right. That was your game of the week, brought to you by Corona. And you know what we always try and be around here? A fan that never loses. And here's what we mean. Our teams don't always win every single night. In fact, they rarely do. They have played a combined 30 games, the Browns and Giants. They have walked away a winner 5 times. And heck, one of those times, the Giants beat the Browns. So I don't even know if that counts. Our point is that even when we lose, we still love the game, because whether it's a big-time deep ball or a conversion of 3rd and short or 4th and short, or maybe you see Penik and Bobby out tailgating at a Giants game, there's always something to cheer about. And the best beer to pair with those awesome moments, it's Corona, because Corona is all about finding the maximum amount of joy within every moment of the game. So win or lose, at home or on the road, it's the perfect beer to go along with watching football and all the moments that come along with it. So cheers to everybody who loves the game beyond the scoreboard. Corona, for the fan who never loses. Get yours at ordercorona.com for 21 and over. Relax responsibly. Corona Extra Beer, imported by Corona Imports, Chicago, Illinois.
Speaking of Giants and Browns, I was looking at some EPA this morning, and quarterbacks 48 through 50, Deshaun Watson, Drew Lock, and DTR. It's I think it was very similar last year, where it was like, PJ Walker, Tommy DeVito, and DTR. So it's just nothing but excellence on this show.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Might have to double fist on the Corona. Keep doing that. All right, let's talk a little AFC North. We got a pair of games on Christmas Day on Netflix. That's going to be a ton of fun. The Steelers and the Ravens are involved in each of them. Over the weekend, Baltimore destroyed Pittsburgh at home, although the Steelers still lead the AFC North. So are you more interested in seeing who wins the division between those teams, Pittsburgh and Baltimore, or if Cincinnati, who was 4-8 after 12 games, could maybe sneak into the postseason picture, Penik?
You know my answer. Even though it's very unlikely. It's very unlikely. Now, because Denver has the tough schedule, right? Mm-hmm. And even Cincinnati plays Denver. It's the Colts that have it's the cakewalk. It's the Giants this week and then the Jaguars. But the Colts historically don't do very well against the Jaguars, but it's in Jacksonville that they suck. And I think this is a home game for them. But I am way more interested to see if Cincinnati can defy the odds and sneak in, because there was a tweet that somebody had, Rose, and it was yesterday on Sunday, that compared Joe Burrow and the MVP race to like Alex Rodriguez in 2003, where even though the Texas Rangers, correct me if I'm wrong, they were a really bad team, but A-Rod still got the MVP, and that got, and that's like, oh, well, you can maybe do the same thing with Joe Burrow.
See, they got traded to New York. They should trade Joe Burrow to New York.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, they should. That should happen too. See that touchdown throw that he had? When he's literally on the ground, his whole body's down. The reason why he wasn't declared down is because he was touched by a teammate, and those are the NFL rules and not college rules. So you cannot convince me that if Cincinnati gets into the postseason, that they maybe can make some noise. I don't care what that defense is like. I don't care if that defense sucks. You have Joe Burrow. You have Jamar Chase. Joe Burrow's playing out of his mind this year. You have a Chase Brown and a run game that is doing decent, and a weapon out of that backfield as well that they haven't had the last couple years. Shot at Joe Mixon. I think Cincinnati can do some fun stuff in the postseason, so I'm way more interested in that.
Bobby, I know that you want to get in here, but let me just clarify exactly Cincinnati's path. It is the toughest out of all of the AFC teams that are still alive. They have to win both games. That's this Saturday on NFL Network against the Broncos, then the following Sunday at Pittsburgh. They need Denver to lose at home against Kansas City in Week 18. They need Miami to lose one of its last 2 games, and they need Indianapolis to lose one of its last 2 games. So I'm not going to say it's the longest of long shots, because we've seen some weird stuff, and they've got Denver right in front of them to kind of set the tone on Saturday, but it ain't going to be easy. All right, it's Bobby, hop in.
The Bengals drive me nuts, and because it's like do I want Joe Burrow's level of quarterback play in the playoffs? Sure. But I also think the Bengals should be punished for putting together that bad of a defense and that bad of a rushing offense. Like they deserve it. Like I think this is good for the Bengals in the end, because it's like, all right, you're gonna let T. Higgins walk. So that what you're gonna do? You're gonna let another great player walk? Did you see Jesse Bates have a pick 6 on Sunday? Do you see DJ Reader, what he's doing on a team that can win a Super Bowl? You're gonna let another good player walk. So I'm not too enthralled in the Steelers versus Ravens home field advantage, although I would love to see the Steelers get a home game in the playoffs. I think that would be a lot of fun. I think they're a team that's capable of winning in the playoffs, unlike the last few times that they've actually gotten in. But yeah, I guess the Bengals, but again, they're, like you said, Rose, there's no shot they're getting in.
I know the thing that terrifies me is that Denver holds up its end of the bargain by losing at Cincinnati and then losing to Kansas City. And oh, by the way, if you're a fan of the Bengals or the Dolphins or the Colts, you are rooting hard for the Pittsburgh Steelers on Wednesday to take care of Kansas City. Because if Kansas City wins on Wednesday, they clinch the 1 seed. They can sit as many of their dudes as they want in that Week 18 game at Denver. So if it means the world for Denver and Kansas City's like, now, you can't sit everybody, right? The numbers games just don't allow you. But still, you can sit enough important dudes to the point where it could be more of a cakewalk for Denver than anything else here.
And they've shown that they do sit their starters, too.
My biggest fear is that Pittsburgh wins on Wednesday, that Cincinnati wins on Saturday, that both the Colts and the Dolphins win on Sunday, and then the next week, you've got Kansas City that ends up beating Denver, that Cincinnati ends up beating Pittsburgh, and the Colts somehow sneak in there. Penik, you mentioned it, but for God's sakes, I cannot watch Anthony Richardson try to throw the ball in the play. If they're the 7 seed and they have to go to Buffalo, I mean, are they even going to stream that game?
Paramount Plus. No, but I think of how the season, the Dalton Philly is going crazy over this. Think of how different their season is if Jonathan Taylor doesn't throw away that football against Denver.
Yeah.
They're in. They would be just in now. And it's like, oh, we just have a cakewalk. We have the Giants and the Jaguars, and we don't even they wouldn't even need to bank on anybody else.
I do want to say this. Some funky stuff has happened to the Indianapolis Colts in Week 18 against the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's happened before. So even if this is right in front of them, and I know it's not Trevor Lawrence, it would be Mac Jones coming into Indianapolis. I'm just putting it out there in the NFL universe. Weird shit happens that final week. There's always one game where you're like, how in the hell did that happen? And more times than not, it happens to the Indianapolis Colts. So I'm not trying to put bad juju on them. I'm just trying to say that it does happen occasionally.
No, you're right.
Okay. Anybody want to predict? I mean, the Chargers, they're winning in on Saturday. And then, oh, by the way, they play the Raiders in Week 18. So it feels like they're going to win one of those 2 games to get in. Is it the Denver Broncos, or do you think one of those other 3 teams, Miami, Indy, or Cincy, skates in? Bobby?
Denver Broncos. And honestly, they're the team I want to see in there. I understand the whole Cincy angle, but that defense stinks. I want to see that Denver defense in there. Rookie Bo Nix. Let's see how he performs in a playoff atmosphere. I want to see the Denver Broncos in there. And they're going to be the team that makes it too.
Penik?
So again, it goes Cincy and Denver are playing this week, right? And then Denver has Kansas City.
That is correct.
Indianapolis is gonna get in.
God, don't do that to us. I am rooting hard for Cincinnati because I would love to see a Joe Burrow versus Josh Allen round 1 game. That would be incredible. I do think that Denver's going to figure out a way. I think they beat Kansas City at home. I really do. I mean, they had the game won.
Yeah.
The block field goal does them in Kansas City. I just think that Sean but I do think this weekend against Cincinnati, that ain't going to be easy. That jungle's going to be rocking, so that'll be fun. All right, still a little more to go, but first, this word from my buddy Justin Penik.
Yes, Chris Rose. Let's talk about DraftKings, because today's episode is sponsored by DraftKings. Grab your team's favorite jersey and some snacks and head to the couch for another Sunday of action-packed football, and get even closer to the action each Sunday with our partners at the DraftKings Sportsbook. Right now, all new customers, if you bet $5 on anything, you're going to get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins when you use our code Football Today. Stay in on the action. Use your $150 in bonus bets on DraftKings. Same game parlays for a shot at an even bigger payout. And the sports betting is not yet available in your state. Don't worry. You can still join in on all the fun with DraftKings Daily Fantasy and have a shot to win. cash prizes. So download DraftKings Sportsbook app right now. New customers use our promo code football today, all one word. Bet $5 on any wager, get $150 in bonus bets if your bet wins. That's promo code football today only at the DraftKings Sportsbook. You will be glad you did.
All right. So we have been focusing on all the teams that have the chances to make the playoffs and the different machinations and different possibilities. Why don't we focus a little bit on the teams down at the bottom of the standings? You know, they need some love as well. So, guys, I am curious what you think is a bigger story. The reemergence of Bryce Young, who since his benching has played very, very well for Carolina, which ended up getting its 4th win of the season, an overtime victory and knocking out the Arizona Cardinals to boot. Or if the Raiders, by winning over Jacksonville and snapping their 10-game losing streak, costing them a shot at the number 1 overall pick. Which of those two stories, Bryce Young or the Raiders flop by winning, is more interesting, Bobby?
I want to talk about Bryce Young because I'm not sitting here saying, oh man, he's really turned it around. My question is like, what is Carolina? What's going to be their plan of attack at the QB position? Because 8 weeks ago it was like, well, they'll definitely have somebody else in there. Will they try and run it back with Bryce Young? What will be their backup plan to that? I think Bryce Young has obviously been better than what he was, which was the worst quarterback in the NFL by a good margin, besides maybe Deshaun Watson. But since then, I haven't been like super impressed with Bryce Young either. I think he's been like a 22nd to 25th best, starting QB in the NFL since coming back. Like 20th of 36 in EPA per play, 10 touchdowns and 6 interceptions in 8 games. Touchdown rate is 25th, interception rate 15th highest, and 206 passing yards would be 25th. Like he's been okay, like I guess. But like Bryce Young took 26 passes and turned it into 158 passing yards yesterday. Hubbard took 25 runs and took it 152 rushing yards. Now Young's done some fun things with his legs, but my question is, what is Carolina's plan of attack going to be at that QB position going forward?
They're going to keep him.
But are they going to go out and like bring someone in to compete with him, or is he just their day one starter next year?
Oh, I think
that's
he's
a mistake.
No, I think he's their day one starter, and I have to be honest with you. I think he's been playing. I know the numbers are the numbers. I think he has helped lift this team up. With quarterbacks, we talk about a lot of my guys in the draft parlance will say you're either a tractor or a trailer, meaning you're either pulling everybody along or you're dragging everybody down. And I think he has done a remarkable job, even though the wins haven't been stacked, of making a team with a lack of talent competitive. They lost in 4 games, 4 straight games, but all started by Bryce Young. They lost by 3 to the Chiefs, by 3 to the Buccaneers, by 6 at Philly, and then last week they got clubbed by the Cowboys in a game which they did not play well on either side of the football. But my point is that with the Chiefs, Bucks, and Eagles, 2 of those teams are going to be high seeds in the playoffs. The Bucks still have a chance to win their division. They were in every game. He's making good throws, even when he's got pressure in his face. If you look at their receiving core, it still stinks. I mean, it's got to be bottom 5 in the league. Jatavian Sanders, who was a tight end I really liked and started to come on, got injured, and he's been lost for the year. So there's a weapon. Chuba Hubbard has really been outstanding behind just a so-so offensive line, I would say. It's been better. Yeah, he's been excellent. So they couldn't fill all the problems that they had, particularly when they did not have, their own number one pick. They ended up trading into the end of the first round and got Xavier Legette, who's everybody's favorite interview and has done some nice things on the field, but he also has kind of a Quentin Johnston case of the dropsies at times. So I think that he has shown enough to where they add another high pick this year. They go out and make some better moves in free agency as well. I'm not going to say they're going to go be even a 7 or 8 win team next year, but I feel like he deserves to be the guy without competition next season.
And what do you think we're thinking of Bryce Young like 1 year from today? Because even the best case scenarios don't enthrall me too much.
They don't, but we are like the options are paying Sam Darnold, which I suppose is an option.
Nice reunion.
Right, which I suppose would be an interesting move. I don't see that happening anytime. And then who else would you really want? I mean, you're not going to draft anybody from this class.
Yeah, I agree. I think, but I think there should be, a premium on them bringing in, if not competition, a competent backup.
I agree with that. Even if you have Bryce Young as day one, it's competent backup. Yeah.
I've watched some of the stuff that Bryce Young's done. I've watched full games of it since, and you do see some nice stuff, right? Where before it was total disaster. But part of me is like, I feel like we're kind of judging him on a curve because of how bad it was before. Because it was terrible. Like they just lost some games. Now he's not losing them games, or I guess they are losing games. But like he's not the sole reason they're terrible on offense or bad on offense.
Yeah, and I agree with that. I think grading on the curve is a great description of it. At the end of the day, if this was the quarterback draft class of this past season that was available this year, the decision would be much, much tougher.
Right.
But because of where we are right now with a couple of guys who we think are okay, but probably most years wouldn't even be discussed as top 10 picks, I think it's a tough way to go. Real quickly, with the race for the number one pick, The Athletic did a really good job breaking down the percentages. Congratulations to your New York Giants, which it feels like
it's done.
Solidified. It says they have a 63% chance of picking number one overall. The Patriots are next best at 19, and then it falls off significantly. Jacksonville is at 8%. The Titans are at 6%. Cleveland's the only other team that has higher than a 1% shot, and that's 3%. So the Raiders went all the way from 2 down to 6 right now in the draft order. I mean, fans of that team they're hating themselves, aren't they?
Oh yeah, but here's their saving grace is that they'll probably be able to trade up to 2 if the Patriots get that second pick, because they're obviously not going quarterback. Now they may look back at that and be like, man, that ended up being the worst decision we ever did. So they can still get a quarterback in there. But yeah, so somehow Raiders tweets were like popping up all over my timeline last night of people just ready to end it all with like, I cannot believe we won that game. But I was watching at the edge of my seat. The Giants have the number one pick, which will be like kind of crazy. That we're gonna have that opportunity. So get to spend all offseason talking about what the Giants will do. Number one on the clock, Justin, and let's hope we don't mess it up. Let's please, God, give us another quarterback. We need another quarterback. Please, 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 please.
What's your excitement level? I want to hear it from both you guys. Scale of 1 to 10, your excitement
We're terrified.
level.
We're not excited. We're terrified. Because it's like this.
What are you terrified for?
Because what they do here could decide the next 10 years of great fortune or terrible fortune. Because even if like people talk about the quarterback position, like, just keep taking swings at it. The Giants won't. If that quarterback is bad next year, then what they will do is they'll fire Joe Shane and Brian Dable, and then they'll hire the GM and head coach who don't have the best sales pitch of who they are and what they're going to build, but who say they can fix that quarterback. And then we'll have 2 years of that, and then that GM or that head coach will get fired, and then maybe they'll have the 7th pick and they'll trade. So they just got to get this right.
Follow Rose?
Wait, are you saying that Shane and Daboll are not getting fired this year?
Dude, I don't think they don't want to. Maybe
I think they are.
Dable. Again, right now
Dable's gone.
Right now they don't want to fire Joe Shane.
Oh God. Okay. That's all interesting stuff. I can't wait though. This is going to be great. And we're going to get to the combine. We're going to be talking up quarterbacks. I did a little poking around. Right now it's Shedeur Sanders, Cam Ward, and some mystery third quarterback that will end up going in the first round, but probably isn't.
Oh, John
round.
Heyman.
Yeah, if Joe Shane stays, it's going to be Shedeur Sanders. That's a guarantee at this point.
This is going to be a ton of fun, isn't it? What a blast. All right, boys. We are back at it later this week. Happy holidays to both of you guys and to our producer Connor out there and all of our wonderful followers out here that hang around with us on Football Today. We're going to be back later in the week, I believe, breaking down the 2 Christmas Day games, getting you all set as well for the upcoming weekend, which don't forget about the triple header Saturday exclusively on NFL Network. I'll be off calling the first game where the Chargers are trying to punch their postseason ticket with a win in Foxborough. Are you guys going to throw shit at the TV while I'm broadcasting?
Brooks.
No, I don't. Actually, you know what? TVs are cheap. Yeah, maybe I will.
All right. For Justin Penik and Bobby Skinner and producer Connor, I am Chris Rose. Happy holidays to you and yours out there. This is Football Today. It is presented to you by Captain Morgan, the official spiced rum of the NFL.